director for the Mountain Central region of the Daisy Foundation. So I'm not actually your program director, but I am so happy to be here speaking with you today. I'm going to share a brief history about the Daisy Foundation and how we came about. And then I'm going to speak to the power of gratitude and how it can make an impact on your organization and your nursing care. It all started 17 years ago with Patrick Barnes. So here he is, and then pictured again in the middle with his wife Tina and their 6-month-old daughter Riley. She was actually 3 months at this time. And Patrick was diagnosed with the autoimmune disease ITP. He was 33 years old when he was diagnosed with this disease. He spent 8 weeks in the hospital, and unfortunately after that 8 weeks he passed away from complications of this disease. And as I'm sure all of you can imagine, his family and friends were completely devastated after his death. It came on very suddenly, and many people survived from this disease, but unfortunately he did not. His daughter was only 6 months old when he passed away. And so after his death, as his family got together to reminisce about Patrick and to celebrate his life, they kept coming back to conversations about the extraordinary nursing care that was provided to him during that 8 weeks when he was in the hospital. They really expected the clinical skill. Patrick was very ill and the nurses did an amazing job with that part. But what they didn't expect was the compassion and the kindness, the way that they treated Patrick, even at times when he was sedated and unaware that they were there. His nurses still took the time to treat him as a whole person and to really show him a lot of love and respect. So not only did Patrick get treated with compassion, but also his family. So the Barnes family, who founded the Daisy Foundation, they felt like they were never rushed whenever they went to the hospital. Their nurses served as their interpreters. They included them in all the decisions and educated them on all of the decisions that they were making, engaged them, and the whole time they were very patient, tender, and kind, and were really able to build confidence and trust between the Barnes family and Patrick and his nurses. The Barnes family wanted a way to say thank you. They went to the healthcare organization and said, you know, what can we do to share our gratitude with these nurses for what they did for Patrick and for us during this tough time? They were very surprised to find out that there was nothing in place that allowed them to share their gratitude with Pat's nurses. They went to the CNO and said, there has to be something we want to meet. We want to meet with Patrick's nurses and let them know how much they made an impact on our lives. The CNO said, sure, let's get together. So the Barnes family met with all of Patrick's nurses. It was a beautiful ceremony. They picked up certificates, they picked up Cinnabons, because again, that was Patrick's favorite treat. And they went in and met with all of Patrick's nurses. They felt, not only were they able to share their gratitude, but having that ceremony with Patrick's nurses allowed them to work through their own grief as a family and through Patrick's death. And then for the nurses, it was extremely powerful to them because they were able to get that feedback. So many of you know that you work tirelessly every single day and very rarely get to hear from your patients, thank you. So it ended up being a very a wonderful experience for everybody involved. And that's when the Barnes family decided that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to give an opportunity to all patients and their families to say thank you to their nurses. So they started the Daisy Foundation in November of 1999. DAISY is an acronym. It stands for Diseases Attacking the Immune System. And we are now in over 2,500 healthcare facilities. And this is in all 50 states and in 15 countries, recognizing nurses with this award. Over 75,000 nurses have been honored, and over 800,000 nurses have been nominated for the DAISY Award. So I think that just goes to show you that other patients and families want to say thank you to their nurses as well. And we now have not only the DAISY Award for Extraordinary Nurses, but also the DAISY Team Award, DAISY Nurse Leader Award, and then in the academic setting, DAISY in Training for Nursing Students, and the DAISY Faculty for Nursing Faculty. And then we also offer the J. Patrick Barnes Grants for Nursing Research and Evidence-Based Practice. So that's available to all nurses of our DAISY partners. Nurses are nominated for the DAISY Award with stories of extraordinary care and compassion. So compassion is really what we're all about. These stories describe how nurses live your organization's mission and values. And the honorees are chosen by a committee of your peers. We oftentimes surprise the DAISY honorees with the DAISY Award. Smaller organizations will do a larger celebration, and that's wonderful as well. As long as you have a chance for that honoree to celebrate with their team is really what it's all about. How do nurses feel when their stories are read out loud and celebrated publicly? Well, as I mentioned earlier, I am not a nurse, and I'm always amazed at the humility of nurses when I go to these presentations, and they are extremely surprised that they're being recognized for the work that they do. Nurses always say, it's nothing, I'm just doing my job, and they're shocked that you're taking time to recognize them. But as they look around the room and they see their peers, their family, their patients coming back to say thank you, their leaders, you can watch as that pride starts to set in, and they think to themselves, maybe what I'm doing is something special. And that's something that I hope all of you are able to achieve sometime soon, if not today. So why does all of this matter? Why is recognition so important? Meaningful recognition is identified as one of the 6 elements of a healthy work environment, and this is identified by the American Association of Critical Care Nurses. What is meaningful recognition? Meaningful recognition is a powerful form of positive feedback that acknowledges how a person's actions affect the life of another. In nursing, that's what you all are all about, affecting the lives of others. It must be relevant to the recipient, and it must be equivalent to his or her contribution. When you have a formal recognition process that's built into your day-to-day of your culture, something like this, something when you're constantly recognizing your nurses at unit meetings and huddles and talking about that, the wonderful, extraordinary work that you're doing, it instills a culture of mutual respect and gratitude. It demonstrates the true value of nursing throughout the organization. It reinforces the importance of the little things that you do every day. It gives a voice to the patient experience and their gratitude. What are patients grateful for? So this was a question that we asked ourselves, and a few years ago we started a study that was led by Dr. Cindy Lefton, who is a trauma nurse in St. Louis. She has her PhD in organizational psychology. We got together with her and we wanted to know what is extraordinary nursing from a patient perspective, so from their point of view. We took a look at over 2,000 nomination stories to see what those themes were. We were able to identify 22 themes from these patient and family nomination stories. I'm just going to go over the top 10. So number 10, they're intentionally present. Number 9, these nurses were all exalted by a coworker. They connected with the family. They were calming and patient, helpful, took time to teach others. They accomplished more than ever expected of them. They had a contagious positive attitude. They reek of professionalism. And number 1, they demonstrate genuine compassion and caring. So I just want to point out that none of these talk about the way that that nurse put in the IV, or that they called their patient back quickly and returned their phone call. It's all about the way in which, how you do your work, that compassion that you show. That's what's really important to patients. DAISY Award nominations describe the patient experience in the most human of terms. They really bring these DAISY nomination stories bring the patient experience to life. So I'm going to share just a couple quotes. So this one was from one of our DAISY partners. This was a nomination story. It said, "She sat by our side as we battled the monsters that this condition brought forth." I recognize that voice. That voice belongs to someone who is such a dream to me, was a shining light and made an unbearable hospital stay a little bit better. I know few things for sure, but one of these is that this woman was put on earth to heal and comfort, and God have mercy on anyone who stands in her way. Just when I was ready to give up, she was there to give me the extra nudge I needed to make it through. She gave me the will to live. So these are just a couple of quotes that really reveal the depth of emotion that patients have for their nurses. And as all of you know, nursing is a very highly emotional and stressful job. You're constantly trained to deal with acutely ill patients and complex technologies and systems, and it seems like there's less and less resources for you to do all of these things. So we're now seeing healthcare organizations and researchers that are spending a little bit of time and paying attention to their workers' emotional and psychological well-being. Compassion fatigue is something that is causing great concern among leaders. And compassion fatigue is defined as burnout and secondary traumatic stress. There's several consequences of compassion fatigue. So I'm sure all of you can relate to these. Emotional distress, safety risks, apathy, loss of empathy, work days lost, poor judgment, even a desire to quit, maybe your organization or the nursing profession as a whole. But when you have a formal recognition program, such as the DAISY Award program as an example, when it's built into your day-to-day, when it forces you to take time to step back and stop focusing on everything that's going wrong, because as healthcare professionals, that's what you do. You focus on what's wrong with your patients, what's wrong with your systems. This actually makes you take time to step back and look a little bit at what's going right in your nursing care. And that's so important, because when you do that, you can see that balance shift, and you go from having compassion fatigue, a decrease in compassion fatigue, and an increase in compassion satisfaction. Compassion satisfaction is defined as the pleasure and gratitude that develops from caregiving for patients. So I think that's really what all of you started as a nurse in the first place, was really to receive that compassion satisfaction. It also helps with retention. Just throwing that out there, since we do have a nursing shortage across our country. Benefits of compassion satisfaction is caring, an increase in patient satisfaction, feelings of contribution to your organization and your community, and then energized moments. So energized moments, that's something that we really became intrigued by. How do nurses deal with all of this each and every day with their sick patients, the insurance, the technology? They go home at the end of a long shift, come back the next day with a smile on their face. How do you do that? How do you achieve this re-energized moment? We did a qualitative study of 100 ICU nurses to see how they restore their emotional energy. We wanted to know what refuels them, what drives their compassion satisfaction, and it really boiled down to 4 different themes. Number 1 is getting that positive feedback, so the times that you get thanked stand out in your mind. Clinical outcomes, seeing a patient get better right before my eyes. Quality teamwork, knowing the people that I work with have my back. And then increasing one's self-awareness, recognizing that I'm affecting you more than I realize. So these are really the things that allow nurses to come back and be re-energized. I have to point out the way that the DAISY Award helps impact these 4 items. Positive feedback, getting that from not only your patients and families, but I encourage you. I always talk with nurses, and they don't take the time to recognize each other. So I am sending out a call to action to all of you nurses. Sometimes the best nomination stories come from nurses, because patients and families don't always know when their nurse is going above and beyond. But I know that all of you know, nurses, when you can see one of your peers as they step up and do something that's a little extraordinary, or maybe that's just how they always do their work. So I ask that you take a moment to make sure that they get recognized for that by filling out a nomination story or a nomination form and giving them that feedback. The clinical outcomes. So the DAISY Award doesn't directly impact this, but I've been to several presentations where they will actually have the person who nominated that nurse come to the presentation. And I think the nurse, when they see their patient come back, it's the first time they've been reunited since that patient was in the hospital. And seeing them take the time to come back after they're feeling better and thank them in person can almost be more powerful than winning the award itself. So I encourage you to invite the people who nominate your nurses to these presentations and have them read that nomination story, because that makes a huge impact on the nurse. The quality teamwork, again, knowing that the people you work with have your back, and then increasing your self-awareness and understanding. I, every week, receive emails from patients and families about their nurses, and each each one says that their nurse is the best, and their nurse had the biggest impact on their life and is their hero. So I can vouch for the fact that patients are very appreciative, even though they may not always say that to you. So in conclusion, to summarize all of this, we created this model. And at the bottom, so it's the impact of meaningful recognition, and at the base is the healthy work environment. DAISY provides the time to recognize and celebrate all the right that happens in the delivery of nursing care. Research demonstrates that through the DAISY Award, teamwork is nourished, enhancing a sense of trust within the unit and potentially the organization as a whole. Reading the DAISY nomination stories during the award presentation raises up role models for patient care that are extraordinary and compassionate, bringing an organization's mission and values to life. And while none of the nurses who receive the DAISY Award think they should be honored for just doing their jobs, they definitely report a deep sense of pride. DAISY also impacts nurse engagement. So research reveals that nurses who have been nominated for the DAISY Award report higher levels of compassion satisfaction and lower compassion fatigue. Nurses who feel valued and recognized are more likely to have increased loyalty and enthusiasm for their workplace and for the work that they do every day. And this is critical in retaining great nurses as we face the nursing shortage across the country. Generating high numbers of nominations for the award is a real asset to improving nurse engagement through the DAISY Award program. And then finally, there's the impact of meaningful recognition on patient and family experience. A recent study concluded that when a hospital explicitly rewards compassionate acts by its staff and supports staff during tough times, it's associated with patients more highly rating their care experience and being more likely to recommend the hospital. By honoring extraordinary acts of compassion, recognition can positively influence the patient's perception of their experience. And the DAISY Award also provides a means for patients and families to say thank you. Clearly, the Barnes family, DAISY co-founders, were not the only people that needed to say thank you to nurses, with over 800,000 nurses being nominated. So to summarize, a healthy work environment with meaningful recognition like the DAISY Award embedded in its culture, this may contribute to an engaged working nursing workforce and higher measures of patient satisfaction. So in conclusion, all of us at DAISY, at the DAISY Foundation, want to say thank you. And I'm going to list some of the reasons why we're thankful. Thank you for being there when life support is turned off and a hug is more than words can say to a family member. Thank you for going to the store to buy that special ice cream for the young patient that has no appetite. Thank you for washing the hair of a teenage girl so she can look nice when her friends come to visit. Thank you for staying past your shift with the dying patient when no one else was there, because you know that no one should die alone. Thank you for answering the same question over and over from the concerned spouse, parent, children, grandparents, and friends. Thank you for making sure that Tigger and Bun Bun are in the recovery room when your young patient wakes up. Thank you for sending the cancer patient home with a smile and the courage in his heart to fight this terrible disease. Thank you for being the nurse whose doctors say make them better doctors. Thank you for being the nurse that another nurse wants to take care of their own mother. Thank you for giving a shave and a haircut to the homeless man after he passed away, so that his parents who hadn't seen him in 7 years would see him and remember him for who he was and not for the man that he became. Thank you for working with transport to take the patient up to the roof so he could have one more look over the town and the mountains that he loved. Thank you for knowing there are times when there is no cure and little hope, and what is needed is not a fix, but simply a presence. Thank you for going through the garbage in the basement to find an elderly patient's treasure that housekeeping had thrown away because they thought it was trash. Thank you for bringing in the patient's pet dog so he could see him one more time and say goodbye to his companion of 11 years. This one is Mark's favorite. Mark is one of our founders. Thank you for checking in with the doctor and then going to the store for some gin and vermouth and making the perfect martini so that the couple who had been married for 64 years could enjoy their nightly martini while the wife was in the hospital. Thank you for not doing anything special. Thank you for just doing your job. Thank you for being a hero. Thank you for making the world a better place.